As a physician that negotiates physician contracts, I got a lot of calls last week when the FTC announced the non-compete ban. And the main question that I got from physicians is, what does this mean to me? And the answer to that question is, it depends. There are three important things that you have to look at to determine if you as a physician can benefit from this recent rule announcement from the FTC banning non-competes. The first thing is, will this ban actually go into effect? The second thing you have to look at is, are you the kind of employee that it applies to? And the third thing you have to look at is your employer subject to this rule? What is this FTC rule that seeks to ban non-competes? It is a rule that seeks to prevent an employer from requiring its employees to comply with a non-compete that could restrict the physician from practicing medicine in a certain area for a certain period of time. Whether you as a physician will benefit from this new rule from the FTC banning non-competes, let's look at the first factor, that first factor of whether it would actually go into effect. After the rule was announced, the rule actually went into a 120-day publication period in which legal challenges actually looking to have the rule not enforced or banned or struck down can actually be filed. To the extent those challenges are successful, the rule could be actually enjoined. So for those that are entering into contracts right now, the rule is not into effect. And to the extent it survives the next 120 days without a legal challenge that enjoins it, it could go into effect. But the opposite is also true in the sense that to the extent a legal challenge is sought, it could be actually not going into effect at the end of the 120 days. For the next factor, are you as a physician the kind of employee that this non-compete ban is supposed to apply to? In figuring out whether you are the kind of employee that the non-compete ban is supposed to apply to, the FTC has given us a good amount of guidance. So first and foremost, this rule is intended to apply to all employees. However, there are a certain kind of employee that cannot benefit from this rule right now, and those are senior executives. And how the FTC defines a senior executive is whether you earn over $155,000, and two, are you in a policy decision-making role? Most physicians do not fall into this category because the FTC considers a policy decision-making role, think of like the C-suite, CMOs, COOs, CEOs. To the extent you are a senior executive, your existing contract with a non-compete is actually enforceable against you. However, if you enter into a new contract after the rule goes into effect, an employer cannot hold you to a non-compete, even if you fit that definition of a senior executive. And for the last factor of whether your employer is the kind of employer that is subject to the FTC ban, this is where it gets a little bit tricky for physicians in answering the question of whether you will be subject to a non-compete or whether you can benefit from the FTC's ban on non-competes. The FTC can only regulate for-profit companies. So if you work for a hospital or an academic institution that is a nonprofit, you do not have the opportunity to benefit from this non-compete ban. But if you do not work for a nonprofit and you work for a for-profit organization like a private practice, a for-profit hospital, or a staffing company that may staff that hospital, you can benefit from the non-compete ban recently announced to the extent it goes into effect after the 120-day publication period is up. So what do you do now? There is nothing stopping you from having the conversation to address this rule in your physician contract right now. To the extent that this rule goes into effect, to the extent that you are the kind of employee that it applies to, as well as to the extent you work for an employer that is subject to this rule, it would be very beneficial to have a conversation before entering into a new contract about removing it from your contract versus waiting a few months and them having to notify you that is no longer applicable. Well, I hope that you found this helpful in trying to answer the question of whether as a physician you can benefit from the new rule from the FTC banning non-competes. If you have any additional questions, you can always shoot us an email here at ContractRx, or book a consultation and we can talk about it.